They say every war begins with a lie. Mine began with a cake. But before we get there, let me tell you something real. My name is Rhea Calderon, and I spent 10 years eating instant noodles in a rented shoebox apartment while the world partied without me. 10 years grinding numbers, chasing invoices, and saving every cent in the hope that one day, just one day, I wouldn't have to ask anyone for a damn thing. And that day came. I was 32 when I stepped into my new apartment for the first time. 2 bedrooms. Bare walls. Hardwood floors that creaked when I walked across them in my socks. The windows looked out onto a crooked little park where kids screamed and couples broke up under dying trees. To anyone else it was average. To me, it was proof I'd made it out alive. I dropped the keys on the kitchen counter and stood in silence. 10 years of skipped vacations. 10 years of saying no to every dinner, concert, beach trip, and luxury handbag my friends flashed on Instagram. 10 years of being called cheap, boring, and obsessed with work. Let them laugh. They didn't understand what it meant to build something from nothing. To rise from the dirt with blood under your fingernails. My apartment wasn't flashy, but it was mine. I scrubbed the walls myself, ripped down the old floral wallpaper and painted everything bone white. Slept on the floor for weeks before I could afford a mattress. Watched DIY renovation videos like they were sermons from the gods. That place, it became a temple. Not to comfort, but to survival. And then came the call. Rhea, sweetie, my mother said in that sugar-coated voice that always meant trouble. We're having a little family gathering this Saturday. You should come home. Home. I hadn't called that place home in years. What's the occasion? I asked, trying to keep my tone light as I wiped paint off my hands. A surprise, she said, voice lilting, but I caught the static underneath. The warning. I should have said no. I should have known. Saturday came. I drove out to Elmswood, to the house I grew up in, a once proud 2-story, now faded and flaking at the edges. The porch light flickered like it was too tired to shine. I hadn't been back in months. Not since Grandma died and everything started shifting. I knocked. I didn't even have to. The door flung open. There she was, Delilah, my younger sister, standing like she owned the place. Rhea, she squealed. Is that the chocolate cake from Mom's favorite bakery? I nodded and stepped inside. Her perfume hit me like a brick, sweet, expensive, and choking. She looked picture perfect. Hair curled, nails done, a glow that screamed, look at me. I used to envy her. Now I just wanted to breathe without swallowing her smoke. The living room was packed. My father barely glanced at me. Uncles, aunts, cousins all smiling too hard, laughing too loud. I was invisible. Like always. I put the cake down and tried to fade into the background. But Delilah wouldn't allow it. She tapped her fork against her glass and stood up like she was giving a toast. Before we dig in, I just want to say how proud I am of my big sister. Rhea bought her first apartment. All by herself. Polite applause. A few chuckles. She didn't even take out a loan. Isn't that just amazing? More chuckles. This time with a hint of mockery. I felt my stomach knot. Actually, Delilah continued, glancing dramatically at our mother. Kyle and I are looking for a new place too. But it's been hard. You know, with the baby coming and all. She rested a hand on her stomach. The room collectively gasped. Mom stepped forward, her eyes wet and glowing. Your sister needs you, Rhea. Just for a little while. That apartment you bought, it's so spacious. You're alone. She and Kyle could stay there, just until they get on their feet. Boom. There it was. The ambush. I stood frozen. Years of sacrifice, the nights I went to sleep hungry, the broken furniture, the second jobs, the missed birthdays. All of it was now just a soft landing spot for Delilah and her deadbeat fiancé. No, I said flatly. That apartment is mine. I won't give it up. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was nuclear. Delilah's eyes filled with tears. I'm pregnant, she whispered. I'm just asking for a few months. Mom wrapped her arms around her like she was shielding her from a monster. You're so cruel, Rhea, she said, her voice shaking. Selfish. Cold. Dad's fist slammed the table. That's enough. You want to see your family homeless? Have you no shame? Something snapped in me. I worked 10 years for that place, I said, my voice like ice. 10 years of hell. While you paid for her vacations, her clothes, her mistakes. And now you want to take what little I've earned because she made another one. Delilah sobbed. You always hated me. You always thought you were better than me. You made it easy, I spat. And then, splat, the cake, thrown straight into my face. Cold chocolate and whipped cream dripping down my chin. It was my mother. Her hands still raised. Her eyes full of rage. You are no longer my daughter, she hissed. The room fell deathly still. Not one person moved. No one defended me. Not even Dad. I wiped the frosting from my eyes, blinked away the sting, and stared at the woman who used to hold my hand when I was scared of thunder. "You'll regret that," I said quietly. And I turned and walked out the door. That night, I sat on the floor of my empty apartment. Cake in my hair. Humiliation in my chest. 10 years of sacrifice crushed under one rotten afternoon. I opened my phone. Typed one sentence into the search bar. Top real estate attorney for inheritance disputes. A name popped up. Julian Voss. Known for winning ugly family cases. I hit call. A calm voice answered. "This is Julian. I need to take back what's mine," I said. "And I'm ready to burn every bridge to do it." There's a moment after humiliation, after the cake, the slap, the public execution, when your body goes quiet. Not calm. Not peaceful. Just quiet like a battlefield after the smoke clears and the last scream dies. That night, sitting cross-legged on the cold floor of my apartment, I didn't cry. I didn't scream or punch the walls or break dishes like they do in movies. I just sat there silent, staring into nothing. And somewhere deep inside me, something shifted. Not like a storm. Like a fault line breaking. Julian Voss called me the next morning. "I reviewed your grandmother's will," he said. His voice was sharp, efficient, like he never used words he didn't need. "The house in Elmswood is to be equally divided between you and your sister. 50-50. No ambiguity." I could hear him flipping pages through the phone. "But your parents have been living there rent-free since her death. And from what you told me, they've essentially seized your share of the asset and are trying to paint you as the villain for asserting your rights." "That's exactly what happened," I said, my throat tight. "You have a legal case, Rhea. A strong one. The question is, how far are you willing to take this?" I didn't hesitate. "All the way." Julian didn't pause. "Then let's start by sending a demand letter. They either pay your half of the house's value or we force a sale." He hung up. Just like that. No fluff. No sympathy. Just fire. And I needed that. Because what followed wasn't a war. It was an annihilation. The moment the letter hit their mailbox, the world exploded. I didn't even have time to exhale before my phone started lighting up like a burning Christmas tree. Text from Mom. "After everything we did for you, you do this?" Call from Dad. "We gave you life and you want to throw us into the street?" Even Delilah, still pregnant and passive-aggressive, sent me a message soaked in guilt and venom. "If anything happens to my baby because of this stress, it's on you." But they didn't just come at me in private. They went public. Mom posted a sob story on Facebook that read like a damn novella. "My own daughter is suing us, just for money, kicking us out of the house we've lived in for 30 years, all while her poor pregnant sister has nowhere to go." And the comments poured in. "She's heartless. Unbelievable. Your daughter needs therapy or a soul." Strangers branded me a monster. Friends from college unfriended me. People who hadn't spoken to me in years messaged just to say they were disappointed. I didn't respond. I didn't delete. I documented. Screenshots. Printouts. Evidence. Julian told me to keep it all. "They're digging their own grave," he said. "Let them." But inside it was getting harder to breathe. Every day I walked into work pretending I was fine. Every night I sat in the dark with only the whisper of traffic outside my window to remind me the world hadn't stopped. Lauren was the only one who stayed. She called one night, her voice soft, hesitant. "Rhea, do you still want to go through with this? Even after everything?" I closed my eyes. "I have to. If I back down now, I'll never stand up again." Lauren didn't speak for a while. Then she said, "I'm proud of you." And just like that, I finally let myself cry. But crying wasn't weakness. Not anymore. It was fuel. I started changing. Quietly. Brutally. First, I stripped my apartment of every trace of softness. I sold the pastel rug, dumped the cheap throw pillows, replaced the floral curtains with heavy blackout blinds. No more pretty distractions. This was a fortress now. I deleted my social media accounts. Got a second number. Blocked half the family. I started lifting weights before work. Not for vanity, for rage. Every deadlift was a memory. Every pull-up a name. Delilah. Mom. Dad. Kyle. Their betrayal carved into my bones, repaid in sweat. One night, Julian called again. They've responded. I held my breath. They're refusing to pay. But they're not denying your ownership. That's good. They're digging in, but we have leverage. If we file for a court-ordered sale, they can't stop it. What's the next step? Mediation, Julian said. We give them one last chance to settle before this goes to trial. I hung up, my hands cold. Mediation meant facing them. In person. Across a table. A week before the meeting, I started preparing like it was war. I bought a black blazer sharp enough to cut through stone. Rehearsed every possible question. Had Julian walk me through the process until I could recite the will from memory. But on the night before I broke. It was 1:43 a.m. I was standing in my bathroom, staring at the reflection of someone I didn't recognize. My face looked older. My eyes darker. My jaw locked. What had they turned me into? I ran a bath, sank into the silence, and asked myself the question I'd been avoiding since the cake. Do you still believe they ever loved you? The answer came too fast. No. They loved the version of me that stayed silent. That handed over money without question. That let them rewrite history while I clapped along. That Rhea was gone. And what replaced her? She was dangerous. The morning of the mediation, I walked into Julian's office and saw them waiting. Delilah, in a soft blue maternity dress, her hands resting protectively over her belly. Mom, arms crossed, lips pressed into a thin, bitter line. Dad, red-faced and glaring. Kyle, sitting there like he owned the damn world, smirking behind his smug, useless silence. Julian whispered, "You ready?" I nodded. Yes. Let's finish this. But I wasn't prepared for what Delilah said when she stood and pointed at me, voice trembling. You want money from a pregnant woman? You want to throw your baby niece out on the street? My blood froze. Baby? Niece. They weren't just trying to take the apartment. They were trying to take everything. I should have felt something when Delilah said it. You want to throw your baby niece onto the street? But all I felt was cold. The same kind of cold that seeps into your bones after betrayal. The kind that doesn't go away with blankets or baths or forgiveness. It stays. Because it's the only thing that makes sense after the people who made you turn around and try to unmake you. I sat there in Julian's office, facing my mother, father, sister, and her leech of a fiancé. I watched Delilah's hand cradle her stomach like a human shield and realized something. This wasn't a negotiation. This was a performance. And I was cast as the villain. Julian cleared his throat, unbothered by the dramatics. We're here to resolve a legal matter, he said calmly. The house in Elmswood was left to both daughters. Rhea is offering a buyout or a sale. Your response? My father leaned forward, the veins in his neck bulging. We're not paying a cent. That house is our home. Mom added, You're heartless, Rhea. Suing your own family just for money. I locked eyes with her. No. I'm suing you because you all think I'm disposable. Because you threw a cake in my face and called me not your daughter. Because I sacrificed everything for 10 years while you coddled her. I pointed at Delilah like a damn porcelain doll. You want to talk about heartless? Look in a mirror. Delilah sniffled. You don't understand. I didn't choose this. You didn't choose anything, Delilah, I snapped. That's the problem. You've coasted through life like it owes you rent. Enough. Kyle's voice rang out like a cracked bell. Rhea, you need to back off. Natalie, he said her name instead of Delilah, which was weird and rehearsed, is pregnant. She's under stress. Your greed could hurt the baby. My laugh was sharp and humorless. My greed? You're the one looking for a free apartment. You think sleeping with my sister gives you a lease to my life. Rhea, Julian said gently. Focus. Right. I straightened my shoulders, my voice flat. My offer stands. Pay me the appraised half, $170,000, or we sell the house and split the proceeds. That's the deal. Mom's lip curled. We raised you. And you weaponized it, I replied. You kept score for 30 years and now you want to cash in like I owe you interest. Well, I don't. I owe myself. Dad shook his head. This isn't you. This is some lawyer talking through you. No, I wanted to say. This is me finally talking without choking on guilt. Julian slid the offer across the table. My parents didn't even touch it. Mom stood first. You want war? Fine. But don't come crawling back when you lose everything. They stormed out, and for the first time in my life, I didn't flinch. Julian turned to me. We moved to litigation. I nodded. Let's bury them. Weeks passed. And the smear campaign didn't just continue, it escalated. They posted photos of the house with captions like, our home, our memories, being ripped away by our own daughter. Delilah even posted a sonogram. The caption? Baby K. Already homeless. Thanks, Aunt Rhea. I got death threats in my DMs. Someone mailed me a Bible verse about hell. Even my boss got an email about me being an unstable family wrecker. I thought I'd be ready for it. I wasn't. I cracked. One night, I threw my phone into the wall and collapsed on the kitchen floor. I stayed there for hours, listening to the buzz of the fridge and my own shallow breathing. This war wasn't just legal. It was psychological. They wanted me to break. To tap out. to come crawling back, begging forgiveness I didn't owe. But then something happened. I got a letter. From my grandmother. It had been tucked into an old book I left at her house years ago. Lauren found it when she was dropping off a coat to her cousin, who lived nearby. It was handwritten, soft and slanted. Rhea, if you're reading this, then something's gone wrong. I always knew your family would try to dim your light. That's why I left the house to you and Delilah to test who would respect what's fair. But I knew deep down it'd be you fighting alone. You're not cruel, sweetheart. You're just the only one strong enough to walk away when people mistake your love for weakness. Keep walking. Don't look back. I cried so hard I nearly threw up. And when the tears dried, something inside me hardened. A week later, I found out something that changed everything. Julian called. There's a discrepancy in the will's filing, he said. A clause was added post-signature. Your parents tried to backdate an amendment that gives them lifetime occupancy rights. What? Forgery, he said simply. They tried to rewrite your grandmother's words. He sent me the documents. The handwriting didn't match. The notary was fake. It was a clumsy job. Probably Kyle's idea. I stared at the forged page and felt something in my chest click into place. They weren't just lying to the public. They were trying to erase me legally. I called Julian. No more settlement offers, I said, my voice sharp. We go to court. Publicly? He paused. You sure? Absolutely, I said. And then I added, I want to subpoena everything. Bank statements. Loan documents. Kyle's employment history. I want to drag their lies into the light. Julian exhaled slowly. Then it's war. But before we could file, Delilah showed up. At my door. I opened it shocked. She looked pale. Exhausted. No makeup. Just the hoodie and swollen feet. I need to talk, she whispered. I stepped aside. She walked in slowly, touching the walls like she was entering a church. Her eyes scanned the apartment. The sofa. The candles. The framed photo of me and Grandma on the bookshelf. She sat down, then looked at me with hollow eyes. Mom and Dad, they forged that clause. Kyle found someone to help. I didn't know until last night. I didn't speak. I'm sorry, she said quietly. No, you're not, I replied. She flinched. I'm sorry it didn't work, I said. That's what you meant. Delilah looked down, her fingers twisting her hoodie strings. I didn't want this. I'm scared. I don't know how to raise a baby. And they promised if I helped, everything would be okay. I crossed my arms. So what now? She looked up at me, eyes glistening. I want out. Out. I'll testify, she said. In court. I'll tell the judge what they did. My breath caught in my throat. But I want something in return. There it was. What? I asked, already knowing. I want a trust fund, she said, voice shaking. Not for me. For my baby. She leaned forward. You win either way. But you can win clean and the baby doesn't suffer. My heart pounded. Revenge had always been the endgame. But now? I had a choice. Burn them all down. Or take the win and throw the baby a lifeline. There's a moment when you stare at the person who ruined you. And realize they're not the villain you thought. They're weaker. Smaller. And that's when you become dangerous. Delilah sat on my couch, hands trembling, her hoodie sleeves bunched at the wrists like a kid caught cheating. I hadn't spoken since she made the offer. She'd testify. Tell the court Mom and Dad forged the will. But in return, she wanted me to set up a trust fund for her unborn child. Not for her. For the baby. That part hit different. Not like guilt exactly. More like, someone reached inside me and twisted the one part of my chest still warm. You know what they did to me, I said quietly. And now you want to bargain? Delilah nodded, eyes heavy with shame. I'm not asking for me. I don't want my kid to grow up in their house, breathing that air. I want to get out, Rhea. I swear to God, I'm trying. I leaned back, crossing my arms, studying her. You let them drag my name through the dirt. You let them humiliate me, cake to the face, remember that? You called me heartless. Told strangers I was making a baby homeless. Her voice cracked. I know. You only care now because you're drowning. Delilah looked up, and for once, her eyes weren't glassy with fake tears. They were red. Real. That's exactly it. I'm drowning. And for once, I'm not pretending I'm not. A long silence stretched between us. I thought of Grandma. Of her letter. You're the only one strong enough to walk away when people mistake your love for weakness. Maybe strength wasn't just about burning bridges. Maybe it was knowing when not to. I sighed, stood, and walked to the window. Outside, the streetlights flickered orange. The city hummed, alive and indifferent. I'll do it, I said without turning around. But not for you. For the kid. And you sign everything Julian gives you, no delays, no games. You testify. You swear under oath. Delilah stood too. I will. One more thing, I added, finally facing her. You disappear from Mom and Dad's narrative. No more Facebook sob stories. No more emotional blackmail. You vanish. Let them fight their own war. She nodded, wiping her eyes. Deal. Julian was shocked. You're giving her money? I shrugged. It's a trust. It'll be airtight. She can't touch it. He paused, then smiled. Ruthless and strategic. You'd make a good lawyer. I wasn't sure if it was a compliment or a warning. The court date was set. 2 weeks out. I spent those nights alone, pacing the apartment, obsessively reading case files, emails, the will, the fake clause. My eyes burned from the backlight. My head buzzed from overcaffeination and not enough sleep. I was unraveling. And I knew it. Until one night, I opened my journal and wrote something I hadn't dared to in months. I'm scared they'll win. Not because they had facts. They didn't. But because they had one thing I didn't. They didn't care how low they sank. And part of me still cared what people thought. So I made a decision. I was going to stop playing defense. I was going to hit first. 3 days before the hearing, I met with a private investigator. His name was Dom, bald, soft-spoken, smarter than he looked. He slid a folder across the table. Everything you asked for. Inside, Kyle's employment records. Or rather, his lack of them. Bank statements that made no sense. Credit card debts. Even a criminal charge for check fraud from 6 years ago, buried in a sealed court file out of state. My heart thundered as I flipped through page after page. I wasn't just up against narcissism. I was up against criminals. This enough for court? I asked. Dom nodded. More than enough. The morning of the hearing felt like war. I wore black. Sharp lines. Minimal jewelry. No emotion on my face. Julian met me outside the courthouse. You ready? He asked. I looked up at the steps. Cold. Gray. Heavy. I'm not just ready, I said. I'm armed. Courtroom 2B smelled like paper and nervous sweat. Mom sat across the aisle, stone-faced. Dad beside her, eyes sunken, jaw clenched. Kyle sat next to Delilah, looking like he just crawled out of a bar fight. And Delilah? She didn't look at me, but her hand rested on her stomach. We were sworn in. Julian presented the original will, the fake clause, the mismatched signatures. He laid it out like a surgeon, precise, surgical, brutal. Then Delilah took the stand. The courtroom went silent. She cleared her throat, voice shaking. My parents told me they'd found an old version of the will. They said Grandma changed her mind. But when I asked to see it, they told me not to ask questions. Kyle brought in someone to notarize it, but I found out later that person doesn't exist. My mother's mouth fell open. You're lying, she hissed. Mrs. Calderon, the judge warned. Control yourself. Delilah kept going. I stayed quiet because I was scared. But my sister, she's been through enough. She deserves her share. And I won't lie for anyone anymore. Not even my parents. Silence. Then Julian stood. No further questions. And just like that, the tide turned. Next up, Kyle. And that's when I unleashed the folder. Julian grilled him on the stand. One by one, the documents came out. Is this your bank account? Yes. Can you explain the $5,000 deposited by a known notary fraud suspect? I don't remember. And this? A charge for forged checks. Ring a bell? Kyle started sweating. His voice cracked. He looked to Mom, then Dad. They were both frozen. Trapped. Julian finished with one final blow. Did you or did you not participate in altering a legal document for financial gain? I. He looked at Delilah. She shook her head. No comment, he whispered. And just like that, it was done. The judge didn't need time. He ruled in our favor. The house would be sold. The profit split. The forged clause voided. And in a final twist of fate, Kyle was flagged for investigation by the county DA. They came for me with lies. I destroyed them with truth. Afterward, I stood alone outside the courthouse, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows on the steps. Delilah came out quietly, her coat wrapped tight. She stopped beside me. I meant what I said in there, she whispered. Thank you. I didn't answer. I just stared ahead. You're not like them, Rhea, she said. That's why you won. She walked off. And for the first time in years, I felt like I could finally exhale. But peace has a cost. And mine was coming next. The day the house sold, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt empty. Like I had just climbed Everest only to find there was no view, no applause, no air. $172,000. That was my cut. 10 years of sacrifice, a family turned to enemies, my name dragged through dirt, boiled down to a wire transfer. It hit my account at 3:12 p.m. on a Thursday. I stared at the number on my phone screen, alone in my kitchen, the glow of the fridge humming behind me. The money didn't fix anything. It didn't heal the bruises left by words. Didn't erase the cake from my face. Didn't bring back the family I'd lost. But it did one thing. It proved they couldn't break me. A month passed. I remodeled the apartment. New floors. A wine-colored couch. A chandelier so dramatic it looked like it belonged in a villain's lair. I started waking up early, walking to the corner cafe just because I could. I signed up for a real estate investing workshop. No one told me what to do anymore. No more forced smiles. No more fake, be a good daughter, guilt trips. I was free. And then came the news. Lauren called one night, voice shaking with half concern, half satisfaction. Have you seen the foreclosure list? No. You need to sit down. Kyle and Delilah's house, the one they bought after the court case, was under foreclosure. 3 missed mortgage payments. No income. Debt collectors knocking on the door. They're going to lose it, Lauren said. Your parents live there too, right? I said nothing. Just stared out the window, watching the city breathe beneath a black sky. Rhea. Yeah, I finally said. They do. The next morning, I went to Elmswood. Not the house. The park across the street. I sat on a cold bench and watched from a distance. Their lights were off. A worn-out, for sale by owner sign tilted sideways on the lawn. Delilah stepped out onto the porch, cradling the baby. Her eyes had bags now. Her posture had changed. She looked human. For the first time in a long time. Then I saw Mom. Still proud. Still pretending. Still rearranging a flower pot like everything was fine. I could have walked across the street. Could have offered help. Could have reminded them I'm still their daughter. But I didn't. Because forgiveness without accountability is just permission. And I was done giving them that. A week later, Julian called. You'll want to hear this, he said. Turned out, the county was pursuing charges against Kyle. Fraud, forgery, conspiracy. Nothing violent. But serious enough that his record would follow him for the rest of his life. Do you want to file a civil suit for damages? Julian asked. I hesitated. Would I win? Almost definitely. I stared at the ceiling. Then I said something that surprised even me. No. Let it go. Really? Yeah. Let Kyle drown in the mess he made. Let my parents stew in the house they're about to lose. Let the baby grow up watching what happens when you build a home on lies. That was my revenge. Not fire. Not lawsuits. Silence. I cut them out so completely it was like they'd never existed. But healing? Healing came slowly. Quietly. One night I sat in the middle of my apartment with a glass of wine and stared at the framed photo of Grandma. She was in her garden, hair windblown, hands dirty with soil, grinning like a woman who knew exactly who she was. I did it, I whispered. Not for the money. Not even for the apartment. I did it to prove that I mattered. That I was worth defending even if I was the only one doing it. Months passed. Then a year. Delilah never reached out. Neither did my parents. Sometimes I wondered about the baby. Did they name her after Grandma? Did she have her eyes? But I never asked. I didn't want to know. Some wounds heal better when you stop picking at them. I changed jobs. Started investing. Sold the apartment and bought a bigger one, top floor, glass balcony, views that made you feel infinite. I still worked late. Still drank too much coffee. Still carried a little bitterness in my chest. But I was living on my own terms. And that was everything. One day, I got a letter. Handwritten. No return address. Just one line inside. She took her first steps today. And she smiled. Thank you. There was no name. No signature. Just a drawing in crayon, 2 stick figures, one taller, one tiny, holding hands under a crooked sun. I didn't cry. I smiled. Then I folded the letter in half, tucked it into my journal, and closed it. That chapter was done. I don't know what revenge means to most people. Maybe it's fire. Explosions. The villain falling off a cliff. But mine was different. I lived. I reclaimed every piece of myself they tried to take. And the best part? I didn't just get my apartment back. I got me back.